and welcome to another edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is Nate Bukaty along with Allie Trost and Conall McCourt today. Allie in the turtleneck, post Memorial Day. I can say that because we're on video. If you're watching on the Facebook page or the YouTube channel in our awesome studios presented by Michelob Ultra, by the way, I'm waving at the fancy video board behind us. It's still chilly. I think it's okay. I think you're all right in a turtleneck.
I don't have much time left.
Though.
I know. It's really sad to look at the calendar and realize it is June 1, and yet I woke up and put on a turtleneck this morning when I was getting ready. But in my defense, it has been quite chilly.
Right? Yeah. It's like the rainiest May ever.
And it's still continuing. There's no end in sight from what I can tell from my weather app. But
my kids are livid. The pool was open this weekend, so we went to the pool on Sunday, and nobody wanted to get in the water at all because it was so cold.
Because it was bad, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's okay. And then, Conall, you and I are dressed as we both have our Soccer for All T-shirts on, which is part of the
You text me, asked me what I was wearing here, right?
Yeah. We forgot to text Allie on that.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been cool if we had all shown up wearing this exact same
It could have been. Missed opportunity, you guys.
A Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other, all three of us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how we roll today. Hey, we've got a busy show for you today coming up on the show. Again, we are presented by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it, and we have a lot to get to. We are going to talk with Kerry Zavagnin, assistant coach for Sporting Kansas City, who handles a lot of the analytics research in addition to coaching. You know, he's not just a stats guy. He's a former amazing player in franchise history. He's been coaching for a long time as well. But he can help us process maybe some of the stats and give us a window into how they process those stats and what they actually tell us when it comes to games. We have these conversations all the time during broadcast production meetings about numbers and stats, and I always say, I'm only in favor of us using a stat if it tells us something.
Yes.
It better really tell. And I don't think it, even if it's just, this is an interesting nugget. Well, why is it interesting? Just because it's a random stat that is unusual? What does it mean? And I think that's what Kerry can help us kind of understand a little bit. So we got a good conversation with him coming up. We're going to recap what was a special, special night at Children's Mercy Park. Full capacity for the first time in 15 months. And the comeback kids do it again. 3-2 Sporting KC come from behind for the fourth time already this year in their first 8 games. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into some topics evaluating the performance of certain players on the team. And then we're going to talk about the national team coming up. They had a game over the weekend, and they got the Nations League coming up. And, of course, we got the Gold Cup coming up in July as well. But this is a bye week for Sporting KC coming up. All eyes will be on the national team as they go out and play their first meaningful games in the Greg Berhalter era, really, is the truth coming up. So we have a lot to get to. Guys, let's start with it, though. Sporting Kansas City 3, Houston Dynamo 2. The Dynamo get a consolation goal at the very death of the game, but Sporting Kansas City pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. I'm going to start with you, Conall McCourt. What was the biggest thing that stood out to you from this game?
We sound like parrots repeating it every week, but it's the resilience that they show, it's the attitude that they show, just the absolute determination, never say die attitude that they came out with. And they didn't sulk, they didn't, go into their corners and hide. They came out in the second half, all guns blazing, and the score kind of flattered Houston in the end. I thought the 3-2, it wasn't that close of a game. I thought Sporting dominated both halves. They were just more clinical in the second. But, a lot of confidence going into, obviously, you have a bye week this week. Next game, Austin at home, I believe. You can't look at it any other way than they're going into that game absolutely brimming with confidence, because what a game that was. What a game, and what a way to get a win to come back from behind again.
What about you, Allie?
Well, got to start with the fans, because I actually had a chance for the first time since 2018 to watch the game from a fan's perspective, which was it was amazing. I'll admit I got a little goosebumps, tears, sure. Maybe well enough. Just seeing, a full capacity crowd back at Children's Mercy Park was fantastic. But as far as the game itself goes, I think just the way that this team has been capitalizing on opportunities. The fact that Alan Pulido, every time he steps up to the PK spot, there's no question that he is scoring. There's no question. Jean-Luc Cabuccio with a fantastic set-piece goal, hang it, get that on, what's the future of art going to be? It's all going to be digital. Yeah, I want that on. I want that above my fireplace, just on loop. And kind of like you mentioned, Houston's scoreline, I think, flattered them a little bit. And I think it spoke more to just how opportunistic this Houston attack is, more so than it did to Sporting's defensive efforts in that game. And I actually went and looked. Houston's matched or surpassed their expected goals average in all but one game. So the fact that, they're putting away the limited chances that they do get each game. They only had 4 shots on goal against Sporting Kansas City, and they scored 2. I mean, that's an opportunistic team, which can take you pretty far, but I think Sporting Kansas City, like you said, their resilience, and then their just ability to capitalize on chances was awesome. It's been really fun to watch this team.
Well, you certainly rather be the team that's creating a bunch of chances and take your chances over the long haul, but they also show that they have guys with the quality to finish some of these chances that you expect them. They're scoring goals, I think, the most in the league so far right now, Sporting Kansas City. All right, for me, I'll come at it from a broadcaster's perspective on this one, because I was actually talking to one of our good friends, Zach Cobb, who's a longtime legendary Sporting Kansas City fan, and he sent me a really nice text saying that he liked the goal call against where Jean-Luc Cabuccio scored the free kick. And I appreciated it because, as I told him, I don't script a goal call. I did script what I was going to say before the game, and I get nervous scripting sometimes because I don't feel like I'm going to come up with the words that are adequate for the occasion, and that's my job. And so it makes me nervous sometimes writing things out. I heard the announcer for the Champions League final refer to the fans being back in the stands in Porto for that game as the way he phrased it was, we welcome back a group of people we never learned to live without. And I thought, that's poetry, man.
Goosebumps again.
Is poetry. I was like, damn, I can't come up with something that good. I have to come up with something for this game tonight, with these fans being back in the stands. And I used the metaphor of the road to recovery and said, when you're on the road to recovery, sometimes you reach a mile marker that reminds you how far you've come, and maybe more importantly, shows you how close we are getting to hopefully putting this whole situation in the rearview mirror. And this is one of those big shiny signs along the road that tells us, look, here we are. We're getting closer because we had the fans in the stands. But when it comes to the goal call itself, the reason, and I'm not, every play-by-play guy has his own approach, and I'm not knocking anybody. There's guys that are better than me that have a different approach. But I don't like having a calling card like that where you say the same thing every time, because every goal is a unique moment in time and they're special. It's not like basketball where there's 100 points a game. The goal is something that we'll remember. And this goal by Cabusio, by the way, is one we'll be telling people in 10 years from now when he's playing at one of the biggest clubs in the world. I was at Children's Mercy Park when he scored a free kick that blew the whole place away, and it was the first goal scored in that building since the pandemic had started. Like, we'll be talking about that goal forever. That goal deserves something different than somebody having a little tap in on an awkward ball bouncing around in the box and a 3-0 win. And so for me, the thing about it was there were 2 things at play in that goal. That was Jean-Luc Cabuccio's moment, right? We've been talking here on this show about my growing infatuation with him, and I don't think I'm the only one. I think everybody's watching this kid and going, wow, we're seeing something special in bloom right now. And but you have to watch every minute of his games to really see how good he's been this year. This was one where the whole world will get to see that, because that video goes all over the place. There are people posting those on all social media outlets and famous soccer players like Gio Reyna commenting on his goal. Mm-hmm. So that one everybody sees. Mm-hmm. So he got to put a big stamp on his rising, star right now. So that was his moment. But it was also the fans' moment, mm-hmm. because that was the goal they've been waiting for, to have 20,000 people explode for 15 months. And that's why I tried to say, a touch of class from the 19-year-old, but I also wanted to say something about listen to this stadium, because that was every bit as much about the people in the stands as it was about the kid that just sent him into pandemonium.
That one small piece of silence before, as the ball hits the bar or the post, mm-hmm. and ripples around the back of the net, and then the entire stadium just erupts. I mean, shows you what I know about football. He stepped up to take the free kick, and I was like, I've never seen him score one. I wonder if he's going to hit one.
Conall,
it bends it into the corner.
I asked Jacob Peterson on the broadcast, are you surprised that Polito's not standing behind this? And he said,
because he hit the one right before, didn't he? Polito hit
Yeah,
the one before.
yeah.
And I think he hit
and
it
we've
into the
seen
wall
Polito
or-
score some nasty ones in
Yeah.
training. You know, when you go
Yeah.
there, the guy's got an unbelievable.
Yes.
So that just shows you. I mean, that speaks to if Polito's saying, "Okay, I'll let him hit it."
The highest priced player on the team, the number 9,
Right, you know what I
saying,
mean?
"Yeah, no, you deserve a shot here."
Right.
And Jacob said, to his credit, he said, "Now I've watched Cabusio take these in training, so I'm not surprised." And then the dude goes and hits it. And I'll be honest with you, at first when it hit the post and kind of ricocheted across the back of the net and the crowd went nuts, I paused for a second because I thought maybe it hit one of the supports behind, because sometimes it hits one of those and shoots across the back
very
behind the
And
distinct.
you
goal.
hear the old fake.
Yeah, and the whole crowd goes
yeah.
crazy, and then they're desperate. And so I was like, "Is this really in? Oh
Right.
my God, that was really in!"
Yeah.
It was amazing, and you know, I'd love to find out too, because you know, we know that Polito is capable of taking those, and as we're learning, Jean-Luc Cabuccio is more than capable of taking those as well. Deciding in the moment, like what about a certain field position makes that a set piece that Jean-Luc Cabuccio takes versus Alan Polito? Like, how does that get figured out just in real time? It's just like, nah, man, I'm kind of feeling it right now, I'm going to do it, or is there more behind it than just a feeling?
It's something we have to ask those guys
Yeah.
when we get the chance. And I don't know if they commented to it after the game. I didn't see it, but this team has guys that can hit free kicks, though, because we can't forget Johnny Russell either.
Right.
We've seen him score from similar range on some beautiful set pieces.
I think
as
there's only
well.
what,
Graham Zusi, you can put him in that.
I think there's
that
only
pool
3
of
players. Is it that have scored a free kick at Children's Mercy Park?
Yeah,
Johnny,
yeah,
Benny,
yeah.
Phil. I think he might have scored more than one though.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
Busio the other night.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the best goal I've ever seen live.
That
I have
was-
no
oh.
problem saying that.
Wait.
Best goal I've
In your life,
in my life. I've never
how
watched
many
it.
games did you? How many Celtic matches did you go to in
Hundreds.
Glasgow? You went to hundreds.
No,
You
I
never
mean-
saw. I'm trying to think.
I
Henrik
mean-
Larsson? Did you watch him play? In
I mean,
person?
yeah, I was young, but yeah, I mean, I remember seeing him scoring goals and whatever, but I can't remember. Like, if I'm trying to think of a goal that was better than what I seen the other night, I can't think of one. I can't think of feeling the same way when I seen. Like, I could not believe that went in. I stood
Man.
with, so I was wearing a headset at the time, knocked the headset off, and had my
Where were
hands
you?
over.
What was your
I
job
was
this
in,
time?
I was in the TV truck. I was
Okay, you were in the
doing.
truck.
I was the assistant director,
Yeah.
and I was because I just put my foot in my mouth by saying, "Well, why is he stepping up to take it?"
So did I.
Mate,
I mean,
bends
hey,
it
man.
into the corner, and I just had my hands on my head. I didn't know what to say, and the entire stadium were going crazy. The hairs in the back of my neck, obviously not on my head, the back of my neck were standing up. But honestly, I was trying to think of, because look, we all fall victim to its recency bias. You think,
Sure.
oh, but I was like racking my brains thinking, have I ever seen a better goal live than that? And I can't think of one.
Well, it's funny that you say that. My uncle took my kids to the game, and my son, my 11-year-old son Benny, starting to really it's wowing me how he's growing and his understanding of the game. After the game, my uncle, who didn't grow up with the sport, he's only become a soccer fan because his nephew does the games, and now he really loves the games. He was arguing with Benny over what the best goal of the day was, and Benny said, "Look, the Cabusio goal hands down." And he said, "Oh, I like the Gotti Keena goal because everybody on the team touched the ball. They were all passing it, and it seemed like everybody was involved." And I'm really proud of my son for his response. I said, "What'd you say to your uncle?" And he said, "I told him, hey, every guy on the team had to do something to lead up to that free kick too.
True.
You know, that was a
Bingo.
team goal as well, because that set piece looks like an individual act, but the getting the foul there and everything, that was a team effort." Man, my kid, he's starting to get this game.
Yeah.
But man, I'd have to say that, you know, the goal that Christian Nemeth had, where he just carried the ball against like 5 to 6 defenders in Portland. That was the MLS goal of the year.
Yeah.
That might have been up there. It's just a different type of goal. You know, that was just a superhuman individual effort. But it wasn't the finish itself that was so special. It was all the things that led up to it. That would be the first one that would stand out to me in terms of best ones I've ever. I saw Lionel Messi score a free kick, Argentina versus USA down in Houston, Texas in
Okay.
person. That was, but it was almost like, that's Messi. Yeah,
Right.
you know, we all expected it, you know. So let's get into the next part of this topic then, and that is, it's becoming, hey, like you said, we're sounding like parrots. It's becoming a recurring theme. Jean-Luc Cabuccio, again. He's MLS Team of the Week. This time he's up for Goal of the Week. And it wasn't just the goal he scored this time. What can I mean, I have all kinds of things I can say about him, but I don't want to run the show here, Conall. You take it. What do you say about Jean-Luc Cabuccio, the player right now?
Man, he was brilliant. Like, flawless. all over the park. You just think every time you see him, you think he shows you something new that you didn't know what he could do before. Just, I mean, I hate to be this guy, like, but fans of Sporting, fans of MLS, get a good look at this kid because he is going to the top. He is, and look, he was doing this. He was on the radar since he was 16, getting into squads and stuff. So obviously, you know, he must have had something a bit about him. But geez, he has surpassed every expectation I ever had for him. That goal the other night, I don't know. Obviously, it's just goals are the biggest thing, and maybe it was the fans and stuff in the stadium, everything, the whole occasion. But to step up and, I mean, put his name in lights, it just seemed like that moment was almost meant for him, kind of. And then you just look at his stats as well. I mean, it's not just 91.1% passing accuracy. For an 18-year-old kid, defensive midfielder, it's just unheard
in a
of.
position where you like.
Where he doesn't even he doesn't even normally play. He's just pulled out of position, put somewhere else, and he's topping the stats and everything. It's unheard of.
And Peter Ramiz has been saying this all along about Busio, that his quality allows them to put him just about anywhere on the field, and that was something that he was preaching and saying when, you know, we first started seeing that, and now I think people are starting to fully understand just because of how much he's played at the 6 and how different the Sporting team looks just by having him out on the field. Doesn't matter where he is. Doesn't matter if he's at the 6, at the 10, playing as a 9, playing out on the wing. It's when he's on the field, he makes a difference. And that is something that is just so noticeable in how this team is just playing off of one another. The fluidity of the ball movement, the player movement. I mean, everything is just clicking. And then the way that Busio has been able to combine with, you know, in the midfield with the attack, like he's everywhere. He covers so much ground, and then he steps up and takes a set piece like that. Like there's no moment that he's not playing like a 19-year-old. And I think, you know, his age, we talk about it, and that was something that made some of his accomplishments in the starts and getting those first minutes and all of those different achievements. It was always coupled with, oh, and he's only this old, which is still very, very true. But he is playing like he's got a veteran presence almost at times on that field, and he is a pillar of this Sporting Kansas City starting lineup this season.
All right, so what's his best position?
I mean, there's people paid a lot more money than us to decide that, like, but
yeah, I know, but the beautiful thing about sports is we all get to have our dumbass opinions. Right. You know what I mean? We all get to sit here and have our stupid opinions about it. We're not the ones that get charged with it. But all right, go ahead.
Okay,
Allie.
So I'm going to say the 6, but it's only because of who they have right now.
So you're saying right now. So you're answering it in the terms of what his best position is for this team right now.
For this team right now. I'm not saying Jean-Luc Cabuccio as an individual. I'm saying with this Sporting Kansas City team, I think where he fits in best and where he makes the biggest impact is at the 6, because I think that the way Gadi Kinda and Alan Pulido combine is special. And I think it is a game changer in the attack for Sporting Kansas City. I think Roger Espinoza has been a player that maybe to some has been a bit of a surprise, just because as he gets older, it's like, how long can this Bulldog keep going? And he's still going, and he is an impact player in that 8 role. So I think the best midfield is with Busio at the 6, with Gadi Kinda at the 10, and with Roger Espinoza playing at the 8. And that's not to say that Busio's like, and this is kind of, it's hard, I think, to really say for Busio as an individual, because we're only seeing him in the context of the Sporting Kansas City team. Maybe with the national team, like maybe that's a different story. Maybe for that team it is the 10, but for the Sporting Kansas City team, the way he's playing as that deep lying in that defensive midfield role, I think with what other players and pieces that they have on this team, I think that is the working formula right now for Sporting.
All right, Conall, you take it from a different angle then. What's his best position? Take the team's situation, current situation out of it. What position?
So Elie, everyone fit then?
No, I'm saying just take him off of Sporting Kansas City. You're going to drop him on a team somewhere, U.S. national team, somewhere in Europe, whatever. What's his position? What's his best position?
I think it's a number 10, personally. Just because I get what you mean, and he's so comfortable on the ball, and he spreads butter all over everywhere. Every time he gets the ball, anytime he gets a pocket of space, he can spread it everywhere. But the further you have him back, I just think you lose a bit up top from what he can create. It was just a random ball. I can't even remember like what minute or whatever it was. He just spread it over to the left-hand side to Luis Martins. And the ball was so driven and so direct. There was another Sporting player in the way. I think it might have been Pulido. And he pulled out of the way, and it just drove straight to him. And I was thinking, I mean, that's brilliant to have as a number 6. But imagine
Well, you kind of described the goal by Kinda. It was a shorter pass, but he did the same thing, and Shallowey got out of the way.
Right, and he
took
jumped
it.
out. And Kinda's also been a joke recently as well. He's been exceptional. But the more you have him back, it's just the further he is away from their goal. That's too simplistic to say, but I just think the further you have him back, if you have Elie there, who we know very comfortable on the ball, he's never going to be hurried, never going to be rushed. If he's there linking the play with Kinda, who does all the running back and forth, and then you have Cabusio at the 10, who also can get everywhere, I think that's the best midfield 3 personally. I would have Cabusio at the 10.
So, first and foremost, we're going to get into the national team a little bit later after our conversation with Kerry Zavagnin. We talked about the fact that Cabusio is better than a couple of the guys, in our opinion, that are on the national team playing this weekend for Nations League. I'm not upset that Cabusio not on that team because he hasn't. This is a relatively. He's been growing as a player this whole time. Since he signed with Sporting, he's been getting better. But everybody has acknowledged that there has been a different rate to his ascent this year. He's going into a completely different stratosphere. If he doesn't make the Gold Cup roster, I'm going to be livid. I mean, I'm just going to be livid. He has a chance to play 3 games here. That's the kind of that's the kind of competition that players like Cabusio should be tested out in. Okay, let's throw him on a different team. Let's find out what he looks like with the national team when he's playing with a bunch of different guys that he just came in together with. Let's see if he's what his chops are like on this level now. That's where you do it, because all those European guys will be going back home. They're not going to be playing in this Gold Cup most likely. That's where you see him. So if I don't see it, I'm going to be livid. I don't know what his best position is, and that's such a cop-out after I made you guys answer the question. He's so good at the 6. You saw read us this tweet from Matt Doyle real quick, because
okay, but before you read it, because I do have a question, because I was looking, does that include aerial duels as well?
It may do. It just says duels, percentage of duels.
Because his aerial duels is very low.
I suppose because he doesn't win many headers, of course.
So this season, he's won 9 and lost 19, so he's got about a 32%, and that's across all competitions, or all matches played so far. So that would include him playing in a number of different positions, but he's mostly played at the 6.
But I think Matt Doyle is just trying to wind people up here. Personally, it's because look, you can as we were saying, stats can be manipulated. You can extrapolate.
Tell us what the stat is before we get into it here.
So the stat is to read quote Matt Doyle. To put a fine point on it, here is the only starting central midfielders in the league who have a lower percentage of duels won than Cabusio at 44.7. He names Kellen Rowe and a couple of others as well. So he's basically trying to say that Cabusio doesn't win enough duels in the middle to be a 6 or to be whatever holding midfielder. And I think that's kind of harsh. I think that's like you're almost looking for something there to try and knock him on. Do you know what I mean? Because look, you look at all of his other stats, so you couldn't have mentioned that he had 90% passing accuracy in the last few games in a row. I mean, it kind of seems like he's been looking for something. But the reason I think I prefer him further up than the 6, because when Elie plays the 6, when Sporting's 2 fullbacks bomb forward, he has a natural sort of instinct to drop back, and you're almost playing with a back 3. Cabusio doesn't really do that. His instinct's to go forward, to create stuff. Whereas, I mean, we kind of get caught at the end of the last game, or when the ball was given away and they were just away. They caught us on the break. I think if you have Elie sitting in the middle, that goal doesn't happen.
So the difference, though, is the ground coverage, the amount of ground that Cabusio can cover versus Elie. And I think there's a reason that Elie has transitioned so seamlessly back to the center back spot, because Ilie's biggest strengths, his ability to read the game and his technical ability on the ball. Well,
and like you mentioned, Conall, there were times, I can think of a number of them, where Elie was kind of that last man standing. He was that last defender, because his inclination as the 6 is to play a bit more defensive instead of having that natural instinct to get up into the attack. And so there were a number of times when teams would counter, the ball would get turned over, and Sporting's got just about every man up in the box. It's Elie booking back because he's already in that position.
Right.
Well, I think it's going to be fascinating to see where Cabusio's career takes him, because I think we found out he can play in a multitude of positions. I won't be stunned if it turns out that the 6 is where he ends up. And another thing to think about is we talk about him on the national team. If he wants to get into that midfield, where is it? Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, those guys playing more advanced up the field. Tyler Adams has the lock on that 6 right now, but Tyler Adams has had a history of injury problems, and he's already been pushed to a different position on his
I think it was
club team.
Jackson Ewell played it again, so you tell me he couldn't have done a job?
Oh, he's better than Jackson Ewell at that position. And maybe he is at the 10 as well. And that's the other thing is it's hard to know because he gets better every game. As you said, he shows you something different every game. Gotti Kina said after the last game, he gets markedly better every game. That dual success rate, it wouldn't stun me at all if Cabusio continues to get better at that as the season goes on. The kid, he absorbs every game. When he has a bad game, he never has a second bad game in a row after it. And I just think that we're trying to project still. That's the crazy thing about him. As good as he already is, we're trying to project what areas of his game he's going. Because I could point out some things at the 10 I think he needs to get better at. But he probably will. Right. That's the thing that's amazing about him. Okay, we got to take a break. We're going to get to Kerry Zavagnin. We'll find out what his thoughts are on this and much, much more. This is the Sporting Kansas City Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer, Sports Radio 810 WHB, wherever you get your podcasts, be that on Spotify or iTunes or wherever. We appreciate you listening to the show. And, of course, watching the video in our plush Union Broadcasting Studios here as we are presented again by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. We are happy to be joined now by Sporting Kansas City assistant coach and, of course, legendary player at one time for Sporting as well, Kerry Zavagnin. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. How are you, man?
Great. Good to be with you guys.
So, first of all, before we get into we have a lot of meaty stuff we're going to talk about with Kerry today that I'm excited to. It dawns on me, Kerry, that I feel like almost every game now, some veteran player for your team is passing Kerry Zavagnin for most minutes played, games played, whatever, and you're in the building for every one of those. So what is that like for you to watch that as that keeps happening right now?
Oh, it just lets me know that I'm getting old and the players around me are getting older as well. So, I had the chance to congratulate Roger on what's been a fantastic career at this point, and certainly the consistency that he's shown and the, part of that core group of guys that have given us so much excitement and championships over the years, well-deserved on his part. And I believe there's more to come.
Well, and I have those numbers right in front of us. If the listeners want to know, Roger moved past you, Kerry, into third place all-time for league minutes played for KC and tied you for third all-time with his 251st start in MLS competitions. So, do you have a conversation about that on the day of the game with him?
No, actually, I didn't know that was the case. I think it was last year, the year before, Matt Beasler had passed and brought me a bottle of wine, which was very nice of him at the time, and I didn't even know that was taking place. And then Zusi, very quietly as he is, passed me as well, and then now you have Roger. But funny, those guys I don't know that they're looking at the sheet in the minutes that they've played. I think it's probably Rob Thompson, our communications guy, that will let them know prior to. But I think it's a great accomplishment, as I said, for him to put those kinds of minutes and miles in for the club. Speaks a lot to what he's done over the course of his career.
So Zeus, he didn't get you anything, is what I took from that conversation.
And neither is Roger yet.
I was about to say, to this point, I'm going to give Roger a little bit more time here, but Zeusy, there's been nothing.
Yeah, typical Zeusy. We're going to have to bust him about
Zeusy.
that. Yeah, next time we have him on the show. All right, hey, Kerry, you and I were having a really interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago that I thought would be really fun to bring our viewers and listeners in on. And you let me come into your awesome office there at the complex. You guys all have just an amazing facility. The offices are incredible, everything you guys do there. And you started showing me some of the advanced analytic material that you have to work with that we hopefully will have some ability to use during broadcasts as well, as we continue to try to give more information to our viewers and help everybody understand the game a little bit better. But man, when you were showing me that stuff, there's an ocean full of data and information that you can get. How new is this to the part of the job that you do? And I want to get into some specific players and things that you've learned from it so far this year. But I guess could you just take us to, maybe tell our listeners about that part of your job as a coach and how that's evolved over time?
Sure. Obviously, analytics have been a big part of the game for a number of years now. I think it's becoming a little bit more received in terms of how MLS teams are using it. Certainly over in Europe. And in England, it's been a main part of their game for a number of years now. And in other sports in the United States, I think we're well aware of how analytics are used, particularly in baseball, but in other sports as well. And so I would say that we're in the infancy, I think, of what analytics can do for you in the game, and not to get bogged down or to get consumed in all your decision making of how analytics are used, because as Bob Gansler used to say, stats are for losers. And so I think there's a little tongue in cheek there, but I think to be overly consumed and guided strictly by analytics would be a misstep on our part, especially after all the years that we've gone without analytics. But certainly they do help confirm some of the things that you're trying to do as a team, and maybe point out some of the things from an objective standpoint that you might not be aware of. And as we were talking the other day, certainly Second Spectrum, the company that provides our data and analytics for Major League Soccer, has been a useful tool for us, particularly over the course of this 2021 season. I would say that 2020 was a very difficult year to quantify, both on and off the field, due to the pandemic. But I think we're starting to get and to see some trends that are developing within our team. And we talked about a few of the players individually in terms of their performances. I think we have, with the naked eye, the ability to see what a guy like Cabusio brings to the game, or what Shallowey brings to the game, and Polito and Russell and Shelton and the rest of the group. But when you really dive into the numbers and are able to kind of compare and contrast that relative to other players in their positions in the league, and also from their performances from week to week, I think it really gives a good picture of where we are and really where we want to go.
Okay, so there's a lot to get into there, but Kerry, do you have a favorite advanced stat? I mean, I feel like there's so many. Do you have one that you're just like, that's really fun, like the first one you're going to go check when you're going through the numbers after a game?
Well, I think, over the years, I think we have, as a team, have tried to pride ourselves on being the protagonist with the ball. And so possession is a very easy stat to look at. It doesn't really tell how the game went, but it does tell you if you are at least realizing the way you want to play the game and want to control the game. And so the first 3 games of the season, I believe that we were ranked, maybe 23rd or 24th in the league in possession. And it was something that we addressed with the team. It was something that we focused on as a group heading into the game 4 and beyond. Because I think over the years, we've been a team that have been the protagonist with the ball. And it's the area of the game where we feel the most comfortable with in the attacking side, which the stats there do prove that as well in our chances created. But I think overall, I think possession has always been an interesting piece for me. As I said, it doesn't tell whether you've won or lost the game. And sometimes lack of meaningful possession often results in losing the game. So, but possession is a great stat. And of course, expected goals, which I think is gaining momentum over here. It's been a big analytic point or data point over in Europe. But I think expected goals is always a really good indicator to look at, because as coaches, we come off the field and we say, we should have scored there, we should have scored there, we had an opportunity there. But really to quantify that and to see it in an objective standpoint is really neat to see.
So, Kerry, talking about like that message that you're trying to convey to the players when you were talking about the possession stats there, this weekend's game against Houston, you actually went in trailing at the half the Sporting actually dominated from the start. So I'm interested, what kind of message do you try to get across to the players there at halftime? Because you are dominating so well, and for one reason or whatever, the chances just, they weren't finding the back of the net. The chances were being created and stuff, but they just weren't finding the back of the net. What message do you try and get across there? Is there any sort of stats or analytics that you would try and push to the boys at halftime, or is it just a case of keep doing what you're doing and good things will happen?
Yeah, I don't think at halftime we've ever brought a statistic to the group and said, guys, we've gotten 6 crosses in this half. Let's keep doing that. I think it's we bring less of the numbers to the table as we're going through the game. But this is a season where I can't remember how many times prior to in seasons before that Peter's come into the locker room at halftime, and we collectively as a coaching staff have gone into the back room in our 4 or 5 minutes before the team talk at halftime and said, you know what, there's really not a lot we need to change right now. We just need to keep going and going, and we're creating the opportunities, we're creating the chances, and if we replicate the second half like we did the first half, we get a sense that with the ball, we were wearing our opponent down. And we've done that in a few games this year, which is why I think it's one of the pieces why we've been able to come back from being a goal down so many times this year, is that we've stayed with our game. We stayed resolute to how we've wanted to attack. And we've made very few changes outside of some substitutions as the game has gone on to inject some energy into the game. But very few changes have we made because I feel we've been a mostly complete team in a complete game, probably from the second half of Houston on of this season.
Well, it's happened 4 times. And I made the comment when Houston scored the goal in the game, the problem for Houston is Sporting's got them right where they want them now. And I was a little worried that I might have jinxed it when I said that, but I just felt like it's just too obvious that Sporting's going to score some goals in this game. So, and luckily for me, it turned out that way. But, Kerry, I want to give our audience a little bit of a taste of some of the types of things you might dive into. And I thought maybe there's 2 players in specific we could have some fun with here. You referenced them earlier. Daniel Shallowey and Jean-Luc Cabuccio. Let's start with Daniel, because I think it's one thing for us as broadcasters to point out how much better his production has been this year than the last 2 years, but I think it's a lot more interesting to try to figure out why. When you look at the numbers, I mean, you can tell by watching him, I know that, but are there any things that jump out to you when you look at the advanced analytics that help, that you can go to Daniel and say, this right here, keep doing this because this is why you're having so much more success this year?
Well, I think it's not just with Daniel, but the entire team that we talk about movement off the ball. And that's something that with attacking players and any players for that matter, you can cause a lot of teams problems if you're constantly moving off the ball. And I know it sounds so simple, but a lot of times, and it can be a little bit of an illness within a group that everybody wants the ball at their feet, and we don't get any movements in behind. And I think the teams in the league that have the most success attacking are the players that are willing to make movements off the ball, even though they might not be getting a consistent amount of passes. And so Daniel's been one of those players that we've talked about, not just this year, but over the years, that anytime he makes movements off the ball consistently, he usually finds himself in really good positions. And so when you look at the physical outputs that he's been able to produce week in and week out here, he's at the top of the league, the 97th percentile in his high-speed running, his number of sprints, and his sprinting distance. Now, that's a little bit different from Cabusio in that Cabusio has covered a lot more ground. But Daniel, in terms of his high-speed running, which is what you would expect from wingers and attacking players, I would add Kyrie Shelton to the mix in that conversation, is that he's at the top of the league in number of sprints per game when you look at all players on the field. So we're getting a lot of movement from our attacking players, Daniel being one of them. And I think that's been one of the reasons why he's been able to have the success that he's had. And I think the New York game, the first goal that he got in that game probably speaks in his willingness to make those movements and arrive in goal and take those chances. And I remember back in 2019, his expected goals was very, very high. His execution was very, very low. And so not only is he getting into those positions, he's actually finishing the chances. And I think which each and every game, certainly the New York game was a great way to start the season for him. Confidence has played a big part of how he's been able to get on the scoreboard.
Okay, and then the other guy is Cabusio. You referenced his ground covered. After the game, Gotti Keene told Carter Augustine that the thing that impresses him the most about Cabusio is that he improves noticeably every game. And I feel that way when I watch him. But if you ask me why, it's hard to explain. Watching him, he's better every game. Do you see something? Do any numbers jump out at you that demonstrate that game by game improvement?
Well, I think he adds a really interesting dynamic playing as a defensive midfielder. You see it as well as a number 8 or even as a center forward, but as a defensive midfielder in which there's so much running involved to cover the amount of ground, and the most successful defensive midfielders in the league have really strong engines to get around the field. And Buccio's statistics being in the 99th percentile, I think he's third in the league right now in overall distance covered. And when you look at that over the course of 8 games, he's covered a little over 91 kilometers, a little over 11.2 kilometers a game. I think that right there gives a really good indication of how much he is running each and every game. So not to say that directly contributes to having a successful game, because you can run and have meaningless running and really run yourself out of position. But Cabusio is starting to find his consistency, and I think a little bit of that has to do with us keeping him in one position, not moving him all over the field. It has a little bit to do with the players around him, particularly with our 2 central defenders, and the combination that they have with those 3 to kind of bring the ball out of the back. And it gives Cabusio the opportunity to face the field and really utilize the passing range that he has and the vision that he has. And when you have a defensive midfielder that gets a goal and an assist in a game, I think you have a really special player, particularly with his ability to cover ground and to make really, telling passes within the game.
Not to mention the set piece, right? Like, I don't think anyone's forgotten about that just yet.
I tried to squeeze that in because it was just a decent shot,
You don't need analytics to tell you about
No.
that goal.
Yeah.
No, you just need 2
I don't
eyeballs.
need to tell anybody how good that was, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've watched that far too many times. But, Kerry, you mentioned confidence, and confidence is not something that you can measure with Second Spectrum or some of these platforms that do measure those things. But when you talk about confidence with Daniel, you talk about, the improvements of Cabusio, which I think you could also tie back to that confidence. It's not just the individual confidence, I think, that we've seen with some players, but it's the confidence that this team is exuding as a whole. How much does that success and that confidence to you correlate, even if, wins, losses aside? Wins can, of course, provide that confidence.
Yeah, it's been it's probably 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago that I think Pete was talking in the post game of saying we're still trying to decide who we are and kind of build ourselves into the season. I believe it was after the Austin game. It was a good performance at home, but I think we were still kind of building our way into the season. It's a long year, a really long year, and you have to take the moments when you're in form to get as many points as you can. And I would say right now, I think it's pretty safe to say that we're in form and the guys feel good. They feel good about the chances we're creating. They feel good about the results, because at the end of the day, you can try to convince the group, look, you're a good team. You can play with the ball. You can possess the ball. You can create chances. But if you don't have any success in terms of winning, it doesn't last for very long. So results are paramount in terms of building that confidence. And sure enough, we've kind of built into our form and gotten results at the same time. I think the result in San Jose was a little bit of a turning point, even though the Vancouver game was a really great performance at home. I think the San Jose game really gave us that added confidence to go on the road, to be able to beat a good team and to play well and to play our game. And I think we were riding a little bit of momentum. And when you add to that, filling up the stadium with our first full house in over a year, I think all of those elements contributed to that good feeling of feeling good, being at home, feeling good with our results, and feeling good about our play. And so I think we hit ourselves at the right moment the other night, and now it's a question of whether we can maintain that coming into a bye week. Can we maintain that and build on that and kind of navigate ourselves through the next section of the season?
Well, it's certainly exciting stuff. A little bit less than a fourth of the way through the season right now. 8 games in, Sporting KC just 2 points off the pace for the Supporters' Shield right now and the Western Conference lead. Hey, Kerry, we could keep doing this for a long time, but I know you have places to be. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can talk to you again real soon.
Great being with you guys. Thanks.
Thanks,
All
Kerry.
right, that's Kerry Zavagnin. We're going to take a break. We'll be back to recap that, because I think we have a lot of thoughts on some of the things that Kerry just had to say to us. It's really fascinating stuff. And we'll preview this international weekend coming up as well. That's right after this on the Sporting Kansas City Show, presented by Michelob Ultra. And we're back to wrap things up on this edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer, Sports Radio 810 WHB, wherever you get your podcasts as well, and hopefully checking us out on video on the Facebook page at 810 or the YouTube page as well. And we are presented by Michelob Ultra. Just a couple of minutes, guys, to talk a little international soccer here. First of all, congratulations, Alan Pulido and Gadi Kinda getting called into their national teams. Gadi Kinda going to play for Israel. That's got to be an emotional thing right now, considering what's happening from the geopolitical standpoint in Israel right now.
But even how good has Kinda been? I think it's kind of went under the radar because of
sure.
how good Busio and Pulido and stuff. Kinda
Yeah.
has been
And it's
exceptional.
But a lot of that has to do with just how Alan Pulido plays. Having Alan Pulido on the pitch in a larger capacity, as we've seen now that he's been working back, the way that his work rate and how far back he moves to get the ball, that opens up space for Gadi Kinda. Like that, the way the two of those two move off each other is just so fun to watch. And I think Alan Pulido significantly elevates the level of play that we get to see from Gadi Kinda.
Both thoroughly deserved their call-ups.
Yep.
I'll say that.
Yep, so Pulido, the Mexican national team, and Gadi Kinda to the Israeli national team. And so we can be a little glad that Sporting KC do have that bye week this weekend. They were supposed to have a bye week next weekend. That got moved up because of the Gold Cup is coming to town, so they will be playing. Might miss those guys for that game against Austin. But, hey, Sporting that's a chance to look at your depth a little bit. What are we looking for this U.S. men's national team after what happened over the weekend? They take a lead but then lose to Switzerland in a friendly. Always tough to know about friendlies. But this is the opportunity that we get to watch the first-choice team, mostly of the European-based guys, Allie. And by the way, one now who's not going to play, but an American male who's won the Champions League, which we have to point out as well because that's never been the case before.
So I think we might see Christian Pulisic in this game because I was reading an article on MLS Soccer and Berhalter was saying that, like, look, try telling Christian he's not playing in this game. Like, he's as motivated as ever to come in and play. And so first of all, like, watching Christian Pulisic and Chelsea win that game, I really wish he would have put away that opportunity. It was all otherwise kind of like a boring game watching it. And that chance, it would just been so cool to see. But all of that aside, I think we will see Christian Pulisic in that game.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Conall, can you give us the schedule here? What are we looking at for the United States men's national team when it comes to the action? Because you want to make sure you watch these games.
So July 3rd, they're away to Honduras in the semifinal of the Nations League, and then June 3rd, pardon me, and then June 9th they're at home to Costa Rica. So that's the next two games.
3rd and the 9th, so Thursday, just a couple of days away. We're doing this on a Tuesday. Should be a lot of fun. Sporting are off this weekend. And then on the 12th, they welcome Austin to town. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for listening. For Conall McCourt, for Ali Trost, and for Kerry Zavagnin joining us on the show today. We thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Sporting Kansas City Show.